Hi there. This evening I am starting a little series I'm going to be doing on my channel, and it is all around the Discworld series of books by Terry Pratchett. This was sparked by a recent trip to the UK. I went to England to visit some friends. Every time I'm over anywhere in the UK, I will take the time to go to some charity shops because they're the best place to get books. And there's always a Terry Pratchett or a Bill Bryson lying around, so I had set myself a little goal over the weekend that I was there to find and buy as many Terry Pratchett and Bill Bryson books as I could, and I ended up finding a lot in one shop. I asked one of the guys that was volunteering if they had any, because I didn't see any on the shelves. Well, I saw one. I think I just found one Bill Bryson, and he was nice enough to let me into the back, and there was like this shelf full of Terry Pratchett books. I walked away with 23 Terry Pratchett books and I think 7 Bill Brysons. A lot of them are books that I've read before but didn't take to France with me, and since we took the car on the ferry and not flights, I was able to bring it all back home at once, so that was pretty cool. And that might sound a little crazy to buy so many books at once, but they were 30 pence each, so it came to around about, I think some were more expensive because they were hardbacks. Some Bill Bryson ones were hardbacks, and it came to around about £13, something like that. So it was really not even worth thinking about whether I should or not. It was basically a done deal as soon as I saw them on the shelf. So I now have a good few of the collection. I think there are about 41, there are 40 or 41 books in the Discworld series. So this is the first in the Discworld series. Terry Pratchett, the first Discworld novel, The Colour of Magic. And it has the very unique illustrations on it. Pretty much all of them have this aesthetic. There's maybe a couple at the end that are slightly more modern, but they still have a twist of this kind of goblin-y, witchy aesthetic to the illustrations. Okay. On a world supported on the back of a giant turtle, sex unknown, a gleeful, explosive, wickedly eccentric expedition sets out. There's an avaricious but inept wizard, a naive tourist whose luggage moves on hundreds of dear little legs, dragons who only exist if you believe in them, and of course the edge of the planet, one of the best and one of the funniest English authors alive, The Independent. So this is sadly no longer true, Terry Pratchett died maybe last year or maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember. Time has passed. Anyway, which is a shame. He left a lot of good books behind him, so at least we have that. It is definitely sad. Okay, The Colour of Magic. I'll just read the little reviews first. So from British Book News, verbally witty, imaginatively resourceful, and with a nice line in comic book action, this novel will be enjoyed by those who enjoy high-spirited fantasy. And from Kirkus Reviews, frothy, inventive and fun. Publishers Weekly said, heroic barbarians, chthonic monsters, beautiful princesses and fiery dragons. They're all here, but none of them is doing business as usual. The Oxford Mail said, some erudite jokes on one dimension and a rollicking story on the other. The Scotsman said, he has the exceptional gift of humour. The plot is so ridiculous and so much fun that it shouldn't be revealed in a serious newspaper. Pratchett is very good indeed. Isaac Asimov's science fiction magazine. There is no end to the wacky wonders, no fantasies as constantly inventively mad, wild and wonderful. And then lastly, the Library Journal has said, his concoction of wacky adventures is a delight, clever in language and characters and situations. I agree with all of those. Okay, just read a little bit about Terry Pratchett. So Terry Pratchett was born in 1948 and is still not dead. Well, he wasn't when this was written anyway. He started work as a journalist one day in 1965 and saw his first corpse 3 hours later. Work experience meaning something in those days. After doing just about every job it's possible to do in provincial journalism, except of course covering Saturday afternoon football, he joined the Central Electricity Generating Board and became press officer for 4 nuclear power stations. He'd write a book about his experiences if he thought anyone would believe it. All this came to an end in 1987 when it became obvious that the Discworld series was much more enjoyable than real work. Since then, the books have reached double figures and have a regular place in the bestseller lists. Well, that doesn't change. It didn't change at all. It was always in the bestseller lists, every book. He's also written 3 books for children, the Trucker's Trilogy. Occasionally he gets accused of literature. Terry Pratchett lives in Somerset with his wife Lynn and daughter Rihanna. He says writing is the most fun anyone can have by themselves. The contents, there's only 4 sections. The Colour of Magic, The Sending of 8, The Lure of the Rim, and Close to the Edge. Okay, I'm going to read the prologue. It's actually really beautiful. Okay. In a distant and second-hand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, the curling star mists waver and part. See, great Atuan, the turtle comes, swimming slowly through the interstellar gulf, hydrogen frost on his ponderous limbs, his huge and ancient shell pocked with meteor craters. Through sea-sized eyes that are crusted with rune and asteroid dust, he stares fixedly at the destination. In a brain bigger than a city, with geological slowness, he thinks only of the weight. Most of the weight is of course accounted for by beryllia, tubal, great fawn, and jerikine, the 4 giant elephants upon whose broad and star-tanned shoulders the disk of the world rests, garlanded by the long waterfall at its vast circumference, and domed by the baby blue vault of heaven. Astropsychology has been, as yet, unable to establish what they think about. The great turtle was a mere hypothesis until the day the small and secretive kingdom of Krull, whose rimmost mountains project out over the rimfall, built a gantry and pulley arrangement at the tip of the most precipitous crack and lowered several observers over the edge in a quartz-windowed brass vessel to peer through the mist veils. The early astrozoologists, hauled back from their long dangle by enormous teams of slaves, were able to bring back much information about the shape and nature of Atuan and the elephants, but this did not resolve fundamental questions about the nature and purpose of the universe. For example, what was Atuan's actual sex? This vital question, said the astrozoologists, with mounting authority, would not be answered until a larger and more powerful gantry was constructed for a deep space vessel. In the meantime, they could only speculate about the revealed cosmos. There was, for example, the theory that Atuan had come from nowhere and would continue at a uniform crawl and steady gait into nowhere for all time. This theory was popular among academics. An alternative favoured by those of a religious persuasion was that Atuan was crawling from the birthplace to the time of mating, as were all the stars in the sky, which were obviously also carried by giant turtles. When they arrived, they would briefly and passionately mate for the first and only time, and from that fiery union new turtles would be born to carry a new pattern of worlds. This was known as the Big Bang hypothesis. Thus it was that a young cosmocolonian of the Steady Gate faction, testing a new telescope with which he hoped to make measurements of the precise albedo of great Atuan's right eye, was on this eventful evening the first outsider to see the smoke rise upward from the burning of the oldest city in the world. Later that night, he became so engrossed in his studies he completely forgot about it. Nevertheless, he was the first there were others. Doesn't that sound just magical? It's just beautiful. I love the way that he writes. It's like everything is just odd enough to be interesting, but not like too odd that you can't relate. It's really unbelievably well crafted. He was really an amazing writer. It's a shame that there will be no more, but as I say, I'm glad he left so many books behind him. I'm gonna leave it there for this evening. So I hope you liked this little introduction to Terry Pratchett's The Colour of Magic, and I would definitely recommend this, and probably all the others to come too. I would definitely recommend that you pick it up, or any of his books really. You don't need to read them in order or anything. I certainly haven't been reading them in order. I've just been reading them as they come. But I think now that I have so many of the collection, I might try and read them in order and see if I can't get something more out of them doing it that way. I definitely have a lot of them to reread. I think the last time I read this one I must have been about 15, so I'm sure there are probably even concepts and parallels that I didn't understand at 15 that I would now. I hope you found this relaxing. Subscribe if you're not already. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you next time.